Welcome to Agent Tactics. In this video, I'm going to cover the #1 reason why most YouTube channels fail and never actually get business from it, whereas some realtors generate 6- and 7-figure incomes from YouTube. And that's storytelling. I'm really excited to lean in on this topic. It's something I've really worked on over the last couple of years. And I'm also excited because I have a great YouTuber out of Charleston, South Carolina, named Bill Olson. Bill, I feel like I've heard so much from Jeremy Knight, Will Draper, talking about your lead magnets, what you're doing in a small market and dominating through YouTube. Excited to have you on, Bill.
Wow, excited to be here. Thanks.
Sure. So I thought a good place to start would be talking about like a little bit of background on channels. So I've already asked a lot of people in the chat. If you have a YouTube channel already, drop a 1 in the chat. We got a lot of ones here from Jason, Danielle, Ubby, Jeremy, Tom, Fuzz. So many people already getting started on YouTube. What I'll lean in on is really just telling you that storytelling can be done in any channel, right? Everybody can have storytelling tactics in their channel. And the way I do it is through a home tour. So my entire YouTube channel is all home tours. It's something I started 3.5 years ago. 98% of my clients come from organic YouTube leads. And so these home tours really worked. But what I want everybody to know is the first 2-3 minutes of the video, I do focus on the house. I do talk about features, but then the remaining 90% of the video, because my videos are like 20-30 minutes long, I really try to get into as many stories as possible. The #1 reason why storytelling works is because it connects with your audience emotionally. And when you connect with your audience emotionally, they're much more likely to reach out to you. They're not going to reach out to you when you just say, here's bedrooms, here's bathrooms, here's a kitchen, here's a living room, and you just walk through a home and you just explain features. Nobody connects with that emotionally. But when you give other people's experiences, other people's stories, people connect with that. And when they connect, they feel comfortable. When they feel comfortable, they reach out to you. And so I'm going to give a lot of examples on here. I want to make this interactive too. So I'd love to hear from other people of how they've done storytelling, or even by the end of this, if you have ideas of how you want to implement these tactics, we would love to hear from you. So that's my background as a real estate YouTuber. Bill, give us a little bit of background on your channel and then also how you incorporate storytelling.
So I don't do the home tours. I have more of like the relocation style channel. And I use storytelling a lot like you do with, hey, here's my clients, um, their story, why they loved an area or a specific neighborhood or anything, really. But also, I'm not from Charleston. So I use a lot of my own story as well. So especially if you have a relocation channel, like I know there's probably a lot of agents in your market that are like, I was born here. Like I'm the best agent for you because I was born here. Well, if someone's moving into that market and you're like, hey, I moved here. Here's what I learned. Here's what I didn't know before I moved here. Here's all this. That story that you have is actually going to resonate with your ideal client more than someone that says you should work with me because I was born and raised here and I know nothing else. So lean into that, or even if you've just moved, if you are from that market. So I did a video. So I'm in Charleston. So we lived on an area called Johns Island, and then we moved to James Island. I did a video and I titled it "Why I Left Johns Island After 7 Years and Two Homes" is the name of the video. The premise of the video is comparing the two areas. But I used my story and my reason as to why I moved my family to a third home on a different island. Don't worry, I don't live like in the Caribbean. They're like suburbs. Um, but my move was the vessel. I could have made a video that said James Island versus Johns Island. What's the best for you? And it probably would have got 100 views. This one has like 7,000 views. So lean into your experiences.
That's really good, Bill. And I'm just pulling up your channel. And as you can tell, I was just watching a preview of
14
UT versus
14,000
Georgia.
views.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, I had to leave
Yeah.
Johns Island after 7 years and two homes. Bill, I want to start right here because this is a great storytelling example So this is a year ago that you posted this. Have you had people reach out to you and ever quoted like a particular video that resonated with them? And then why did it resonate with them?
So videos like this, like I get the question a lot, like from people, from agents. They're like, "Well, what's that one video that brings you all the leads?" And I don't think you can. It's it's the body of work,
Yes.
you know. So, but you can, in conversations with people, you can kind of pick out on which videos that they resonated with and they watched. And this is actually one of them because a lot of people will say, like, "Well, I know you live on James Island." Or I know you used to live on John's Island. We're thinking about moving there. So for both of those people, like without telling me they watched this video, I know that they watched it and I know that it resonated with them because they know where I live. They know why I live here. I had a neighbor say, "Hey, I saw our neighborhood in your video," like walking down the street because I filmed it in my front yard.
That's good. So they already know
So,
something personal about you even before talking to you for the first time.
it's, you can do about anything. Like if you just moved like 3 blocks away, like leverage that. Like, why did you move? Like, how can you use that with some market stats and define that area? Hey, you needed a bigger house. Okay, we moved from this neighborhood to this neighborhood. Here's why. We were able to stay in the same schools. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Like that's your story. A story doesn't have to be like your typical story. And this was the hardest thing for me to get over when someone said, "Well, your videos need to tell a story." I'm like, okay, so I need to have like, your 3 parts of a story, your protagonist, your antagonist, like all of that. It's like it seems overwhelming when you think about it. But with what we do, the story is I had clients move from Pittsburgh, and this is where they were looking. This is where they ended up. And this is why. That's your story right there. I have a video coming out on Sunday, and it's the the top neighborhoods near Costco. I'm trying to lean in on this whole like the Costco content is like blowing up on YouTube. So I'm like, how can I use that? But I just had a client close on a house and they gave me 3 main criteria. They wanted to be close to a hospital, close to an airport, and close to Costco. That was
Love it.
it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about them and say, hey, we got closer to Costco than we did the other 2 things. So right in my hook, I mentioned them. And then the neighborhoods that I picked, I have clients that also live in there. Now their criteria wasn't Costco, but I can still talk about them.
That's really good. I'm just starting to lean in on Costco and the trend as well, Bill. Not from a YouTube standpoint, like a consumer standpoint, right? So I'm with you on that. And I should also mention this is Agent Tactics. We do this every Friday at 10 a.m. And the goal here is 10 a.m. Central. The goal here is collaboration over everything else. I think rising tide raises all ships. So I think when I hear storytelling from Bill, like incorporating his own experiences, something as simple as Costco, I know it works because these are the things that resonate with people that make them feel comfortable. They don't reach out because you talked about a kitchen backsplash or a countertop that looks cool. Those are great things. And if you're doing a home tour like me, we should point these things out. They're there in the home, but we really want to connect with them on that lifestyle level. And that can be done on a relocation channel like Bill's, or it can be on like a home tour channel like mine. So I'll show a little bit about my channel. As I mentioned, when I said it's all home tours, I wasn't kidding. It's all home tours. It's something I've been doing for 3.5 years. And what I find really works from a storytelling element is talking about different clients' experiences when walking through the house, and something pops up of something my client said. It could be positive, it could be negative. It's just a talking point. So I'll give you multiple examples of what that looks like. I had a client that closed on a home and they had a huge backyard. And so I did a home tour of their video. Excuse me, I did a video of their home. And in their backyard, what they always told me they loved is backing to a green belt and the green belt behind them had this pond, and walking their golden retriever every day out to that pond was their dream. And they built that home from scratch. And sometimes even under construction, they'd walk back into that green belt with their golden retriever, even before living in the home. I thought that was such a cool talking point. And they were from Seattle. 34% of my clients moved from Seattle to where I am in the Austin metro area. And when I thought of going to that backyard, like what was the story there? Obviously, it's a big backyard. Obviously, I could talk about a pool going back here. There was a pergola already built up in the back. Those are things right in front of us. You can picture them, you can imagine them. Those are pretty obvious. But what I talked about in that moment was my clients talked about moving to Austin because in Seattle, beautiful city, amazing city, but it rains all the time. In fact, Seattle ranks number one for least amount of sunny days in the United States, excluding Alaska, of course. And that's a big pain point. They can't walk their golden retriever when it's raining every single day. And I've jokingly told them once, well, you'll avoid the rain now that you're moving to Austin because, you'll be the 6 months it's raining a lot. You'll be able to enjoy the weather out here. They said, no, no, no. It's not 6 months in Seattle it rains. It rains 9 months throughout the year. It's gray a lot. And this isn't me ragging on Seattle, right? I'm just explaining what my client has told me, right? So if people are from Seattle, they can resonate with that because that pain point exists, right? And right now in October, it's something I want to lean in on with so many people from Seattle moving here. It's starting to get gray there. It's starting to rain there a lot. And so I'm going to start incorporating that in my home tours for all my videos moving forward for the next like 3 months, right? But going back to that video, I talked about how they decided finally to move from Seattle to Austin. And sure enough, once they did, 5 of their friends moved within the next year after they decided because they all visited Austin with them and realized this is the lifestyle that they wanted. They want a home where the back gate in their backyard goes out to a green belt and they can walk their dog almost every single day. Yes, assume summer here is brutal, right? And I talked about how the 2 months, July and August, it's brutal here in Texas. It's scorching hot, right? But most people just fly to Colorado. It's like a 2-hour flight, and then it's 70s in Colorado in the summer. Or they go back to Seattle, or they go back to California, or they lean in on the weather. They go down to Mexico and go to a resort. It's like a 2-hour flight to Mexico City. These are all the talking points that I mentioned that I was discussing with my client. Keep in mind, we're in a home tour. I'm just walking in like a bunch of grass in a backyard, right? It's not like that visually appealing. There was nothing in the backyard other than a pergola. And I just went through this story. And from that video, I had 4 leads contact me within a matter of a few days. And they said they've been watching my channel for a while, but 3 out of those 4 people were from Seattle. And they said when I talked about that story from Seattle, they related so much to it. In fact, 2 of the couples were saying just recently, they were like, should we move to Austin? Doesn't it get really hot there in July and August? And one of the guys said, when I started talking about from Seattle, he paused the video, yelled at his wife, you got to come into the living room and watch this. He's talking about people from Seattle. Mind you, it's a recorded video. It's not like it's live and he's going to miss it, but he was so excited. And that's when I knew, like, okay, I got to lean in on that storytelling element. How can I talk more about what it's like to live from Seattle moving to Austin? What are some other client experiences that I can write down? And now I have a list of 10 to 20 items of just talking points that I've gotten from people who moved here from Seattle. Now I can talk about California. California is a little bit more like taxes, maybe, some other talking points that I could say there. That's kind of a whole nother story. But my point is keeping track of all these talking points and just bringing them up in your videos. You'd be amazed at how much business that will convert because again, you're connecting with them emotionally. Um, Bill, that sounds like we're doing similar things. You're just doing it more in like a relocation type of channel way, and I'm doing it more just in a home tour way. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at, but with you also, it's not just your clients move to that model or that home, because you can also do it with the areas as well. You could be in a model home, you could never have a client purchase in that particular neighborhood, but they've probably moved to that suburb.
Yes.
So for those of you who are like, well, what if I don't have clients here? What if I don't have clients there? Make something up. Or, I mean, you have clients that have moved. You have clients that you can incorporate their story somehow. If they didn't move there, tell that story because you can turn that around. Like, hey, they didn't move. I had clients. We looked at this. They loved the house. The yards were just a little too small for them because they have golden retrievers. They did end up in another neighborhood on the other side of town. We'll talk about that later or in another video. Just say that. Now you're letting them know, like you're addressing that the yard is small. You're gonna have someone who's like, you know what? I've got a little dog. I need a small yard. I don't want to cut it. So you're using these other clients in other neighborhoods and other suburbs to tell a story. Like, not I don't want to say like on the negative side of things, but you're showing both sides. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. If they hated the neighborhood, like find a nice way to say why they didn't move there.
Absolutely. They didn't move there, but they moved somewhere else, right? There's another
Mm-hmm.
reason why, right?
And then do another video on that one. And at the end of that one, be like, and if you want to know why they moved to that neighborhood, I would check this video out right there. Tie it all together and then send it to those clients. Whenever you mention a client in a video, first off, I don't say names, but if I mention them, I'll text them the link, be like, hey, just so you know, like you're going to be famous tomorrow when this video comes out. And they love it. They love it. Because like they're watching you on their TV. Like think about that. Like they're on their couch watching you on your TV. Like the people you watch on TV in your eyes are famous. Raj is famous to his viewers because they're on the couch watching him. They're letting him into their house. And then they watch his video and he's telling their story. Like,
I was just telling this to my videographer who I just brought on, Bill. I just switched videographers because my videographer that was with me for over a year started a YouTube channel and it blew up. And he's licensed in real estate too, so I'm really excited for him. So I had to. We agreed that it made sense for him to focus on real estate. So I brought on a new videographer, and we were in front of a house for a client that's selling their home. And long story short, I actually referred that client like 3 years ago because I couldn't take it on, just didn't fit my criteria, but I want to do a video to help them out in selling their home. I've never seen them face to face. I talked with them on the phone about 3.5 years ago, and they pulled up to the house and they said, "Are you Raj Sahoo? Can we have your autograph?" And I was like, "You must be, Derek and Cassie." And we like shook hands. It was really awesome to meet with them. I never understood that. I've been very weirded out by it, especially when people are like surprised they got me on the phone. But I got it once I started to realize, Bill, that people watched, especially through the pandemic, a lot of YouTube on TV. In fact, YouTube is now crossed Netflix for more watch time on TV, which is pretty incredible considering how powerful Netflix is. So that's something that you have. And I think what you were mentioning there, Bill, is for a client's house or like getting a shout out from the client on and seeing that on their TV, and that it's like almost like oh my God, I'm on
yeah.
TV. Like I'm getting a
Right.
shout out
And then
on
they want to
TV, right?
share it with all their friends.
Yes,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I do want to share one thing. So I just had to go into analytics to figure out where it is. So if you go in your analytics and click on audience and go down and it'll say like the countries that they're from, then you can expand it. It'll actually tell you where your viewers are by state. So if you're like, I don't know which clients to talk about, you can go in there. So like on mine, South Carolina is actually one of the highest for me. And then Georgia, Florida, California, North Carolina, Texas, New York, Tennessee, Virginia. So, and I actually didn't really know that like you could get this granular with it. So like now I know, oh, if I talk about Georgia, that's the second highest state that people are moving from. And also, if you don't have enough viewers on your channel, just go to the census data and look to where people are moving, what zip codes are bringing people in to your city. And even if you don't have a client from there, you can talk about that stat, be like, hey, Georgia's sending the most people to Charleston, and it's probably because this, and just like list a few things. Because people are like, oh, I live in Georgia. Like I was thinking about moving to Charleston. Or I live in Seattle. Like if you didn't have any clients from Seattle, but you saw that, okay, like this is a big demographic moving to Austin, you could take that and say, hey, we've got a lot of people moving from Seattle because of the rain. But look, it only rains X amount here compared to there. Like use that census data to tell a story about fictional people.
100%. Yeah. And look, if you don't have the clients, get stories from your colleagues, right? Abhi Bhakta is on this, and Abhi has incredible stories, been a great realtor for 10 years. He owns 9 rental properties. 6 of those 9 are Airbnbs. When I talk about like, just go off on investing, like people have invested in this area, but they buy their forever home in this area. I'll bring in stories that I've heard from Abhi. When I got started in real estate, I didn't have any stories, right? But I was talking about what was going on with bidding at the time in 2021 and some of the bids that I was hearing about and how those bids were uneducated. People didn't realize builders were increasing base prices. Everybody was just focusing on the lot premium bid. You don't even need to understand what I just said, but I would just go off on topics like that. And then people started reaching out to me because they were like, you're educating us on bidding. And these were stories that I was just hearing from other people, stories that I was hearing from the builder agents that were telling me, yeah, these bids that are coming in doesn't even make any sense. Like price of a home last month to a price of this month just went up $110,000 month over month. That doesn't make any sense on a $1.1 million home, right? And so some of those talking points were huge, but those weren't my talking points. They don't always have to be my talking points. You can get them from colleagues. A couple of the questions that we got here, Daniel mentioned, how do you not run out of stories if you're posting home tours consistently? Couple answers that I have for that, and then I want to hear from you, Bill. First is just say the same stories over and over again. It's fine, right? I've talked about stories of buying into growth in the Northwest corridor of the Austin Metro. I've talked about why that's happened with Apple building their second headquarters 15 miles northwest of downtown Austin, $2 billion developments that happened in Leander, Texas. I might have told that story like 200 plus times, right? It's okay. People are not watching every single one of my videos. I hope they're not. I mean, my videos are like 30 minutes long. They're watching me like hours. I hope they watch multiple videos, but there's no way they're watching every one. And it's okay if you repeat these things. They're not going to retain every single story that you say. And it's not like you're like a TV show where the story has to keep propelling forward. You're not telling that type of story, right? You can just tell the same stories over and over again. But the second thing I'd mention is lean in on every single conversation that you have with people. Yesterday, I was out with clients. We were talking about design. We were just in a home and we randomly started talking about kitchen. And in that kitchen, the home had a very busy countertop. The backsplash was also very busy. There was two-tone kitchen cabinets. There was a lot going on in this kitchen. And she said the wife of this couple looked at the kitchen and she said, this kitchen has like a lot of cool stuff in it, but I don't get it. Like it just feels like it's smacking me in the face and I don't really like it. And I said, what I think is happening here is they used a lot of materials that are trying to be the focal point in the kitchen. It's got multiple focal points and it's all battling with each other. And the problem with doing that is when you have all these materials competing with each other, nothing stands out as the core focal point. And that's why if we decide to build from scratch, most designers at the design studio will tell you, pick a focal point. It's either going to be the kitchen backsplash or it's going to be the countertop, and then everything else should flow together, and that makes that one focal point stand out. Now, in my next video, I'm about to record it this afternoon, that's going to be posting next week. I'm going to talk about that story. When I talk about the kitchen, I talk about building from scratch. I'm going to say, hey, I was out with a client last week, and what my client told me is there's this beautiful kitchen, a lot of great materials, but it just didn't make any sense. Here's why. And take a look at this kitchen. What they did here is the waterfall kitchen countertop on the kitchen island is the focal point. Everything else flows together. So I'm going to use that as a story, and it was really just one conversation in a 2-hour home tour. Does that make sense? Bill, what do you think?
So you said something about like new developments, and project, not housing developments, but like developments like Google or Facebook or whatever. So this is something that I'm actually doing now on Instagram. So my Instagram has just gone like bonkers in the past month and a half, like almost 6,000 new followers. And I'm only talking about new development projects. We have a $3 billion Google thing coming in. You know, celebrity chef is coming back into town to open a restaurant, all that. Use those as stories as well. All the stories don't have to be your clients or people moving. So if you're talking about an area, tell a story about, you know, we have a big Volvo plant. They're about to start doing building EVs. So that area, so for like Avi, like with your investments, like I had an investment client call me because I did videos about, hey, these are the top 4 big development projects I'm watching right now in Charleston. And she said I was the only place she could find that outlined these major developments because she wants to buy an investment property near all of this. If someone's bringing in 1,600 jobs, she's like, I want to buy an investment property near those 1,600 jobs. So in those videos, the story is, why is Volvo and Google and like Redwood Materials and Boeing and all of these places in Charleston? Where are they? Now you're telling the story to people that could be relocating for work there or investing near them. So subscribe to like your business journal, your digital version of your newspaper. Be the agent that knows what is going on. I have people DMing me on Instagram now, and they're like, hey, do you know what's going on with this property? And you know what I did? I Googled it and I sent them a news article from like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, this is all I know right now, but I'll keep you updated. And so now your story is corporations as well as, then you can talk to like, hey, so if you're moving here to get one of these jobs at Volvo, like this is going to lower your commute time or whatever. So start layering all of that in, and I guarantee they're my best videos, and I'm going to lean in on those heavily on like new projects.
Yeah. And that shows growth. It kind of sells your area without you selling it, right? It's like the
Mm-hmm.
news story is what's selling it, right? I like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
and
to
you
lean up.
really just read the news and just reiterate what they say in your own words. Like you don't have to, and add a small opinion. That's all you have to do, and you're telling a story of, oh, why is Google coming here? And then people will argue in the comments as to why it's a bad thing, and you'll get engagement in the video. It'll do better.
Yes, exactly. That sounds like a Jeremy Knight tactic of he's always stirring up controversy or different opinions, right? Yes or no, this, what do you think of this? And then his
Yeah,
comments blow up, right? Um,
yeah.
so that's good. What I want to lean in on here too, Daniel, is the stories. It's all about listening. Like I went deep in detail of my client's story about the kitchen, but keep in mind, just from that home tour of 2 hours, I also heard about they also have a golden retriever in the backyard. They play fetch, and so having a big backyard for fetch is like their dream compared to where they are in Seattle. Also, they had realized that they wanted a view off their backyard, but spending $150,000 just to get a view lot doesn't really make that much sense when you can just walk out your front door and you get views walking through this community because they're in the hills and all this stuff. That I could probably rattle off 5 to 10 other stories that I heard from them that are all talking points, all small things at face level, but all things that I can write down and have written down that if I'm feeling brain dead, which I often am at late at night and I'm trying to do a voiceover, then I can just take a look at that list of things that I've heard from just a 2 hour home tour. And I got multiple stories there. So it's actually pretty difficult to run out once you understand the storytelling elements that you get from people or colleagues, like I mentioned. The other thing I want to go back to, Bill, is you mentioned saying negative. I think this is really important. So I feel like people are cautious to mention something negative because once they get in front of video, they need to sell, right? Like it's almost like the camera goes on. Now they're a salesman. Like they need to sell their area. It's always sunny here in 70s. It's amazing, right? Like they are so fearful of stating things that are negative. And I think you point out a way to do it, which was really good. This is something, Bill, I would struggle with in the beginning for exactly what I just said. I was cautious to mention something negative. Now I've realized that I can do it in a general way that doesn't burn any bridges for me, but still tells my clients that I am very genuine and honest. And here's the type of advice that I give people. I'll give you
That's
an
what it is. It's
example.
that
Yeah.
honesty and trustworthiness when you can
Yeah.
talk about both sides. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like we're
Yeah.
scared because we want to sell. Like, hey, this is the best place to live. This is why you should live here. But look at like Amazon. Like for me, I look at 3-star reviews because I think they're the most honest because they had something good enough to say about it that they gave them 3 stars, but there was also something wrong with it that they couldn't give it 5. So
I like that.
make 3-star review videos. Give them a little bit of both because that shows honesty and trustworthiness. If it's all positive, 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 people aren't going to trust you. It's like it's not that. There's got to be something wrong.
I love that, Bill. The mentality is a 3-star review video. I wrote that down because I'm definitely going to use it. Um, well, a little bit of background. I do a lot of new construction. It's been 100% of my sales for 3.5 years. So I haven't written a resale offer in 3.5 years, and I've never done a listing before. So everything, I'm all in on YouTube. I post a lot about new construction, and obviously there are a lot of builders here in Austin, and they're all very different. They all have their pros and cons. And so I want to mention cons without putting down a builder publicly. Otherwise, that, a lot of builder agents watch my channel, even some of their higher ups I've heard watch their channel, and I've heard from them when I go to their different meetups or things that they events that they do. So I'm cautious to put the builder down. But what I found like a good general way of doing that is I'll tell people a story of my clients deciding amongst two different builders. One was a little bit more production heavy. The other one is a self-proclaimed luxury home builder. But what I found is 3 to 4 years ago, that luxury home builder was great. They did half moon windows. They did some customizations. They could move this wall, move this wall. They could do some customizations. They weren't full on custom home, but they definitely felt luxury because they offered an array of options and it stood out from all the production builders that don't have many options. That has changed over the last 3 to 4 years. That luxury home builder has dialed down on their windows. Now they do a lot of 3060 windows, like your typical window size. They cut down on the customizations. They say no a lot more when you ask if you can make a customization. And I just don't think the price for that luxury home builder in many of the communities they're building in makes sense anymore. When I say something like that in a video, what did I just do? I just did exactly Bill's tactic, right? Negative. I've mentioned a negative. I'm honest. This is the type of advice that I give clients. And I tell people in the video, if you want to know who I'm talking about, reach out to me. I'd be happy to give this advice. This is the type of advice that I give clients that I work with one-on-one. And when people hear that, guess what? They want to know which builder I was talking about. Because in the beginning of my video, I mentioned I've represented clients with 21 different builders. They want to then know what my experience is. So in a way, I'm giving my value proposition, but I'm also giving honesty, like Bill was saying.
I
Bill,
love that you don't mention the builder name
yeah,
and just make them reach out to get it.
100%.
Can
Bill,
I add something?
yeah, go ahead.
So you know who your when you think about it, you know who your avatar is. It's whatever. I mean, if you were to average all of these people that you've dealt with out of Seattle, so instead of what is my audience, if when you speak specifically to Bill, who's 37, who worked at Boeing, but now he's coming here, whatever, to me, you're being more focused on them and you're addressing their concerns. And you don't have to, I mean, you can be as positive or negative. There's a woman out of Colorado who is not in real estate, Amber Vilhauer, and she has gotten very specific with focusing on an avatar. And so that's something that I'm doing now. And so she has this avatar, Heather, and every decision she makes is based on Heather. Every video she makes is based on Heather. And yet all of her or 70% of her clients are male. And so it's just focusing the message. So it because otherwise, I think for me, when I think about recording a video, before this thought, I was going, oh man, who do I want to appeal to? Well, I want to appeal to everybody from retirees to Gen Z, and that wasn't right. So this just helps focus the message and keeps you on point and appeals to everybody, just coincidentally. And that's all I have. That's what I've got.
Yeah, that's great. So Tom, in other words, the camera is a person, right? Sometimes people get very awkward when they're in front of camera. Bill, I know I was I was definitely that in the beginning, but somebody tell me pretend you're just talking to a person, right? Like who was the last client that you had? That's who you're talking to. Is that what you do, Bill?
Yes, it's something I'm really working on now, is to talk as if I'm addressing a singular person and not my whole audience. And thank you for thinking I'm 37. I'm about to be 44. But yeah, talk to a singular person. So don't say, how's everyone doing today? Say, how are you doing if you say that? Because that again becomes that relatability. Like you're talking to a friend, you're telling a story to a friend. It's me and you. It's not me and you and you and you and you and you and you and you. It's the two of us here. And it's that eye contact with the camera, and that helps you get more comfortable. I mean, I had someone send me one of my first videos the other day, and they're like, "I just watched this." I was like, "Please don't." And it's a video from like 5, maybe 6 years ago, but it made me think. I was like, "Man, in 5 years, the video that I made today, I'm going to think the same thing about. I'm going to be embarrassed by my videos today in 5 to 6 years, probably like I am my videos from 5 to 6 years ago, because you're always getting better. You're getting more comfortable, and who knows what the style is going to look like then. I looked pretty awkward back then. My office was terrible. My lighting was like everything was horrible. But you will get, it's just practice, repetition, just like anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. For everybody who dropped a 1 in the chat earlier, so you got a YouTube channel going, feel free to unmute or put in the chat any stories that you've told recently that have resonated with people, your audience, or if you have any ideas of stories that you would incorporate into your channel now. And while everybody's putting that together, another story I'll mention is, and I'm just going to give this as an example because I want everybody to be a little bit like creative when you're thinking about this. I was going through a home tour for a home that was like 5,000 square feet. And in that neighborhood, I just had somebody close on a 5,000 square foot home. And they're a young couple. They don't even have any kids. And you might ask yourself, well, why would somebody buy that big of a home? They were a little bit worried about it. And I went into this story about how their dream was they're from India. They moved here and a lot of their family's still back in India. So when their family comes in from India, the last thing that they want to do is put them all in different hotel rooms. Their dream was to house everybody from India. And when they had a housewarming party and they closed on their home, they had 32 people stay at their house. I mean, their media room had like bed set up or like sleeping bags, their game room. They are in a 5 bedroom home. And it just every bedroom is packed and everybody was just staying everywhere. And after 2 weeks of a lot of people staying with them for the first time they're moving into their home, they were exhausted, but I saw them after that and they were so happy. They were filled with joy. Like to do that and fulfill their dream, to say like have everybody visit America and like look at other tech companies. A lot of them are trying to get into tech here and just stay at their house and like build that dream for their cousins. It was so important to them. And I mentioned that in a home tour. Like this has nothing to do necessarily with the home. It's just a talking point that came up recently. And I had a couple clients come in through that video. Like Bill was mentioned, they don't just come from that one video. They've been watching me for a little while. But the question is how do I convert them before they meet another agent at an open house or they meet another agent through XYZ marketing? I want them to reach out to me. And it really takes connecting with them emotionally. And I had a couple young couples that were like, we've been struggling with that. Like, are we just buying a big house just to say we have a big house? Like, what's the point of having all these bedrooms? We're trying to have kids, but heaven forbid if that doesn't happen, like we're just stuck with this big home. What's the point? And they realized that they had dreams of having a lot of people stay with them, a lot of people with big families, especially if it's cultural, having them all stay with them is so important. And leaning in on something like that can be very, very, very powerful because nobody else is talking about that. I can promise you, in my market, there are hundreds and hundreds of YouTubers now, but nobody's walking through a home and talking about those storytelling elements. And I think if you can do that in your market, it will really make you stand out. All right. Anybody have?
And like I said,
Good.
like with the videos, the repetition will get easier too.
Yeah.
To, like you said, like take note of like the conversations you're having. You won't at first, and you'll be like, "Oh, what did they say?" Um, but it gets easier as you start. You'll just start. It's like pattern recognition. Like as people start saying things, you'll be like, "Oh, like it's like when I just watch YouTube in general. We don't have cable. Like we just watch YouTube. I'll be like, oh, I need to do that in a video. Like I watch things different now that I do YouTube. While you're making these videos and telling the stories, you'll listen to conversations a little bit different as well.
That's so good. And I just realized it says Jeremy Knight on my thing. So obviously I'm not Jeremy Knight, but Jeremy was the biggest YouTuber in Austin when I got started 3.5 years ago. And I kept asking, like, what makes you stand out? What makes you stand out? And Jeremy would give like different tactics that he's used, but the number one thing that he stood out was he was honest. And it's actually, when Jeremy talks about YouTube, his first slide is just being honest. What was his value proposition was Jeremy would do a podcast. He would bring people on and they would just talk about positive things, negative things. He would lean in on controversial topics like homelessness in certain areas or stuff like that. There were delicate topics where, you had to toe the line and how you talked about it. But what's so funny is there was a guy that said Austin's market is going to collapse. It's going to go down 20-30%. It's a bubble. And guess what? Jeremy had him on his podcast. Jeremy has a real estate podcast that is a niche of Austin real estate. Here's a guy that's trashing Austin, saying it's going to go down, and he has him on his podcast. And I thought like some of those strategies were really, really interesting of Jeremy bringing people on and just being honest about these things. And so what I want everybody to know is like being honest is not necessarily always just providing your opinion on things. It's just storytelling, right? Like let your clients' experiences or others' experiences do the like talk about the positive or negative about your market. And that way it's not necessarily on you to do that and provide your opinion on everything. You're just that's the beauty of stories. You're just telling what other people's opinions are. Anybody have any questions or anything else you want to discuss or any storytelling ideas that you have? Feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat. Bill, I want to go back to your channel. So Daniel asked about how did your channel take off and when did you start getting leads? And I would add, why do you think you started getting leads, Bill?
So I've been doing it for a while, and I was in a fortunate situation where when I started, there were two other agents in my market that were doing it. And I can argue that both of them are still doing it wrong. I know they get business from it, but they're doing it wrong. So I was in a different situation. My channel kind of took off and I started getting leads when I realized that I needed to start focusing on not what I thought people needed to know, but what they actually wanted to know. So we're conditioned in real estate to be like, well, everyone needs to know the market report. Guess what? No, they don't. They don't need to know it, and they frankly don't give a shit. Like that's just the nature of it. Like you sit down with someone, you're like, hey, we're going to talk about the market, and you start like spewing data all over the table, like days on market and all of that. Like they're gone. Like boom, if they could shut you down like a window, they would. So you need to look at it from the perspective of your ideal client of what do they actually want to know? If you're making videos about like what's an inspection, guess what? They're already at their inspection and their agent is doing a terrible job of telling them why they needed one. They're not a client. They're someone else's, they're another crappy agent's client. They're coming to you for information. So think about it that way. Like that was kind of what took my channel to the next level of just, this is what you want. Don't chase like a video with 1 million views is actually probably one of the worst things for our niche. 2, 3, 4, 500 just quality views is an incredible video. I just did one, it was a complete overview of Charleston. I literally screen recorded Google Maps. I made my cursor really big and I just clicked around. It has like 250 views, but it's a 35-minute video. Like, that is a very specific person that wants to learn that. Like, I wasn't chasing 100,000 views on that because I know I'm not going to get it. It's if you focus on quality views over quantity of views, that's when you'll see the success. You don't need as many subscribers as Jeremy. Like, my market is a fraction the size of Austin. My subscriber count's going up, but it's the number of people just isn't there to see subscribers at 25,000. I'm at like 6,300. So just if you focus on that, you'll see the success of the inbound leads. Don't chase the vanity metrics.
100%. And you had to do that, right, Bill? Population
Yep.
of Charleston, I'm pulling up, is 150,000 and some change. The population of the Austin metro area that I'm in and Jeremy Knight's in, it's 2.4 million people, right? So when Bill says a fraction, like literally a fraction, like less than 5%. No, what is that? I don't even know the math on that. It's like
well, that's just our city. We're just under 1 million.
Just under 1 million. Oh.
My market. It's like 800,000, but still less than half.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so what I'm hearing then from Bill is like focusing in on views, not focusing in on views, focusing on, targeting your audience. I think that gentleman mentioned it earlier too, is you want that person that's sitting on their couch watching you on their TV to say, wow, this guy gets me. He gets me. He understands me. When you can get that, that's when they'll reach out to you at such a high probability. And that doesn't come from doing videos with a ton of views. No doubt I have homes that are on my channel that if you go to the most popular, they got hundreds of thousands of views. That gets a lot of people into my channel. But if you look at a lot of my top videos, I don't really get people buying those homes. They come in through my channel because they see great views. That home, the specific home, has a lot of entertainment value to reach, to watch it. It's very visually appealing. But really what I'm doing in those videos that go viral is it sells the area. Very early on in that video, I'm trying to link that person up with other homes in the neighborhood that's more in my price point. Going back to Daniel's question of, channel taking off, I started in YouTube in April of 2021. I started getting leads in about month 2, month 3. In month 6, I had 4 YouTube leads, all contract, all on new construction, all within the price point of $475 to $550. Now, in my market, that's the median home price, and that was because my first videos were D.R. Horton, Pulte, a lot of starter homes. So if you don't know those builders, they're very starter home heavy. They build a lot. Those are the 2 highest volume builders in the Austin metro. The other builder was Taylor Morrison, who was number 4 on that list. So I was doing a lot of high volume product, a lot of starter homes. And really at the time, that was the only product that was available. There was very low inventory. And that's how I got started. So when those people reached out to me, I actually had 2 clients buy the same plan with the same builder in the same street. And it's because I just kept showing that product over and over and over again, trying to talk as much as I could about those builders, the competition between the builders, which one's better, some of the stories that my clients were telling. I was resonating with that specific target audience. Eventually, what I started to do in month 5 to month 6 is really get into luxury homes and forever homes that were like 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. And that's when in month 6, I was at 200 subscribers. And by month 9, I was at 2,000 subscribers. Now, subscribers is a bit of a vanity metric, but I just used 200 to 2000 as saying everything 10x in a matter of a few months because my channel took off. And that was because I had a lot of great tactics around YouTube, tactics that I've learned from people like Bill Olson, Jeremy Knight, others like Will Draper, Dan Parker, Brad McCallum, Malcolm Lawson. There's so many other great YouTubers that we collaborate with that we learn tactics. But the point is, the storytelling elements were so important for that specific target audience. And when you get that target audience story after story after story, and you keep speaking to them and they're watching you on their couch, they will reach out to you because you're making it so obvious that you're catering to them. It feels like you know them.
Mhm. So you mentioned Malcolm. Have you ever asked Malcolm, if you meet him, ask him the one video that he regrets making, and he will tell you it's the video that got like almost 1 million views on his channel, because he had a relocation channel about Annapolis, Maryland, and he did a video on like how to pay off your mortgage super quick. It's a completely different type of video, and it blew up. Well, it reset the algorithm on who his ideal audience was. He went from people moving to Annapolis to this like national audience that now just wants to pay off their mortgage. And it like tanked his channel. So there was a question earlier when, would you pick one or do a mix of the type of videos? Like, pick a lane and stay in it. Your lane is your audience. So for me, I'm actually starting a second channel about our downtown because it's a historic downtown. The people that are moving there and the stories to tell about 300-year-old homes, neighborhoods that witnessed the first shot of the Civil War, that's a different audience than families moving to Charleston. So I moved that to a separate channel because it's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different audience. It's a market I want to break into, and this is how I know how to use YouTube and video. I've never sold a home there. So I'm like, okay, YouTube, 12 months, I'm going to sell a home that's over 250 years old. Like, that's my goal. But different channel. If I start just like throwing up videos about historic stuff, like, yeah, it's going to interest these people, but it's not going to relate to them. So the historic stuff will bring in other like touristy stuff, and views, but I'm building that audience. It's like if you're in a big city, I tell people, if you want to sell condos, dedicate a channel to only condos and you will crush it, because nobody is doing content on condos because they don't think condos are sexy. Paul Likens down in South Florida did a couple of videos about condos and they exploded his channel. I'm like, dude, be the condo guy. If you have a downtown with high rises, I challenge you to just start a channel, only talk about condos. The good ones, the bad ones, the amenities, the HOAs, the insurance, everything, because there is a market for that. And no one on YouTube is talking about it anywhere.
100%. Imagine this. You're a consumer. You're Googling condos in Florida where Paul is, who, by the way, got 80,000 views in the last month on his channel. And just got started, I think, on that channel, Bill. He moved there, what, like 2 years ago or a year ago? So
no, he's been doing it for a while. He's been struggling, like kind of like flatlined. Him and I were racing to 5,000 subscribers a year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I beat him. I am now at 6,300 subscribers and he just passed 25,000.
Yeah. He really leaned in on something that worked, right?
Yeah. And he just kind of did a video about like condos and insurance and HOAs in South Florida, which is a hot topic. And it just took off because no one's talking about it. They had to go somewhere, and it was him. Everyone's talking about Palm Beach and living on the beach and Miami Beach and like all of this stuff down there. And he's like, hey, guess what? Condo HOAs suck. And he got like 1 million views on it.
And so I think we're leaning in on a good exercise here. So what I would tell everybody is if you can see my screen, this is an incognito window. So just open up an incognito window on Google. So this means it's not factoring your past home searches or anything about you or anything that you've ever done. It's purely just brand new. And then type in your area. So I think, Frank, you mentioned you're in Houston. If I were to say condos in Houston, Texas, see what comes up. And you can start to see how much traction people have had, what's working. Like this is really interesting. 1,700 apartment hunting, 43,000 views. I can promise you her channel's not massive. Yeah, 6,000 subs, 38 videos in. So like these are some of the things that I can do to figure out, well, what's untapped, what are people doing that's working, and then why, and start to kind of
They're all
like go to
tours.
the home search.
They're all tours. This
Yeah.
would be a channel where I think you could mix home tours with other content, because that's my plan for my historic channel, because it fits. If you're talking about this high-rise condo building, well, a lot of the units are going to look the same. And so people are going to want to see in those. Whereas just like, hey, I'm talking about Austin and here's a random home. Every once in a while, like that's different. For my historic channel, like getting into a 300-year-old home fits the narrative. But on my other channel, just like, hey, here's a new construction home we're going to walk through, is like way out in left field. So if you're hyper specific, like on condos, then yes, mix in condo tours. But everything on here is pretty much just condo tours. I'm not really seeing like best condo buildings, best amenities,
Yeah.
worst HOAs in a condo. Like that is the content that will crush it.
Absolutely. And you can already see what's working. Like if you want to mix in home tours, like obviously the view off of the floor to ceiling glass is amazing. And here's the same channel over and over again. And this person's only 38 videos in. So I think that's interesting. And it took me about, 30 seconds to find that. And so this is an exercise I would recommend people do. If you're struggling trying to find your target audience, also I'd recommend speak to people who do YouTube. And that's really where I got started. I was speaking to the right people, trying to understand my target audience. When I wanted to deviate, they always had me go back to my target audience. And that's what's worked for me for 3.5 years. My views were 1 million views last year, but I got more leads this year than I did last year. And I have a fraction of the views, but it's because I just kept leaning in on my target audience. And that's what Bill and I have, I think, continued to talk about here when it comes to storytelling. It's all about who you're talking to, right? Bill, I think we can wrap
and
up there.
Find that gap in content.
Yeah.
My final part, find a gap in content like Raj did. When Raj started, like no one was touring model homes as a business model. Not just in Austin, but like anywhere, basically. And he's like, okay, well, there's a need here. There's a gap. And now everyone's doing it, but now he's got authority on it. So find a gap in content. I don't know why I just got balloons, but find a gap in content in your market and tackle that gap, because you have less competition. And when people do jump on it, YouTube is giving you authority over them. And then that's when you'll see the growth. You'll be pulling people along, but they'll see their videos, and then YouTube's going to recommend you right after them. So even if they start on theirs, they're going to end up on yours.
Such a good closing point. I think that's good. I think we ran about an hour. So thanks for everybody joining. Again, this is Agent Tactics. We do this every Friday at 10 a.m. Central. I'm not Jeremy Knight, but if anybody wants Jeremy Knight's Zoom password, just DM me. I got it, and I'll hook you up. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bill, for joining.